Great, thank you. Okay, the meeting is open, declaring the meeting open, and welcome to Karen and Darren to the meeting. Let me just pull up my agenda here. Thank you all for being here tonight. Okay, I don't have any specific remarks. We'll get into our discussion about Fjord Trail. I would like to have a motion, please, for approval of the May 5th, 2022 minutes, if I may. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay, may I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Sue. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Moving on.
Matt is muted. Matt is muted there. Okay, there we go now.
Yeah, no, I had sent some changes over late to Karen, just that were clarifications
Okay.
that she has.
Okay, so she's incorporated those.
I don't know. I haven't seen a final we haven't seen a final document, have we?
No.
I think people
I
just
did-
sent them over individually. So we don't really know what edits people are making over other people's edits. We don't really.
Didn't we have a something that put together by?
Was it in final? I don't think so. Was it? I'm not really clear on like how it's all working, to be honest.
Okay.
I think that would depend on the timing of when you sent yours. I
Right.
think that's what it would depend on. So if you sent yours like yesterday, then probably not.
Right. Yeah. So she has those, but she says she's away. Basically just clarifications on well, actually we can just go through them very quick, and then if you're fine with them, then we can just say as amended. Planning board.
Okay.
1 second. Minutes 2022. Is it May 5th, right?
Yeah, it was
Correct.
Yeah, so just where it had said that Matt Francisco stated that the intention of the board that it not have the opportunity to review the terms for a planning perspective. Just for clarification, I changed it to the planning board advised the village board not to enter into / execute an agreement with the applicant until the planning board had accepted the agreement as a solution to the parking issues for office use on Main Street.
okay. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a,
Okay. And obviously these are, obviously I'm not commenting on what other folks said. Matt Francisco commented that changes the number of parking spaces. John kept talking about the changes of parking spaces, and kind of going back to it. And I kept saying, as you'll remember, the only thing that would trigger that is a change of use or a change of square footage. So I think that should be in the minutes. It's not. So basically I just said, and Francisco commented, the change in the number of parking spots would only be triggered by a change of use or change in square footage of the building. Because John just kept saying as if we were able to go back to it. Well, the only thing that would trigger it, we have a parking table that says if you have a use, there's a certain there's a way the parking is calculated.
Right.
So you can't just say I'd like to go to the Y and avoid the X times whatever, right? To change that, you got to say, okay, well, what's changing that? So it's either the square footage increases, decreases, or the use changes. I think that's a very important distinction. That is clearly a planning board function,
Yes,
right? And let me see one other thing.
I remember you saying that.
And then this is important. The agreed upon rate is far less than what was originally proposed. John kept going back to that too. And I will tell you why I kept driving that point home is I don't care about the rate. What I care about is that it's discounted at all, right? And then we have an agreement, frankly, that runs to perpetuity. So, this is probably somewhat, hyperbolic, but I will tell you it's accurate, it's spot zoning, right? You are changing the zoning requirements for a single address, right, to the benefit of a developer. So I think it's important to say that that's not what was said. What was said was what's in the minutes is it was agreed upon that the rate was less than what was originally proposed. And that's only, I think there needs some clarification. The agreed upon rate is far less than what the applicant had originally proposed, which was the full meter rate times 20 cars times work days per year. The applicant had some math errors. In fact, they had offered the village $125,000 a year. But my comments were not about what revenue we should expect. It's just that whatever car parks there, there's no favoritism given to that property owner. And then the whole perpetuity thing just throws a horrible wrench into it. But that is what it is.
All right, but the changes that you're proposing,
The change is just the
there's no reference in the meeting to spot zoning. So
no. It's not. No. I'm telling you what the language is. So here's the only text change.
all right,
The agreed upon rate is far less than what, and then adding the applicant had originally proposed,
okay.
which was the full meter rate times 20 cars times the number of workdays per year. All it says is the agreed upon rate is far less than what was originally proposed. It sounds like we are unhappy with that, or we had some sort of an expectation about proposal as a planning board. We didn't. We sat, and Lara and Sue were there. We sat in front of the applicant who had a PowerPoint who said, here's the revenue I'm bringing you.
Yes.
John is completely correct. We don't have any say, over those numbers.
I don't want to spend more time on this than is necessary. What I propose is, from what I've heard you say in terms of the actual language changes,
Yep.
I think they're all clarifications of, sort of the complications.
They absolutely are.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm proposing is that we adopt these minutes as amended. What I will do is I will go back and listen to those portions of the recording just to make sure that, that it fits in. And if I need to, then we'll bring these back again. Okay, otherwise, I don't have any objections to the clarification specifically that you're suggesting.
And you guys all have them in an email now. Unfortunately, I got it to Karen, but I realized it didn't go to her directly. So I got it to her again tonight, and then I realized she's not there.
Okay. Right.
So you can all see them. I don't think I agree. I assure you, none of you will have an issue with any of them. They're basically just clarifications as to who's saying what and who made what representations.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Which
read
is-
through them before the meeting, and they reflect what you just said, so I have no objections.
I'm not,
Thanks.
I don't anticipate that there will be any problem with this whatsoever. So if we can move on, but I will go back and confirm these changes reflect those moments in the meeting. Okay.
Yep.
All right. The next item on the agenda. Oh, welcome, MJ. Are there any reports from any of the members?
I went to the Dockside Park again,
Uh-huh.
see what is going on.
Yes.
And we talked to the operator of the front loader, just to find out what is going on. He's the only one working there. And he said, there's something going on. He's not certain, but they were discussing something about the shoreline, but I wasn't clear about what he was talking about. However, at the very end, towards the track, at the very end, there was a whole pile of garbage or whatever they collected. And he said that corner there originally was going to be a piece of marshland that they're going to have water plants or something. But
Mhm.
now they realize that that place is going to be a trap of trash. So he said he's not certain what's going on. He said, I'm only the smallest potatoes in the thing, but he said apparently that's a new recognition from the not the engineering or planning or something, that it's not a very good idea. Even it looks good, pretty on paper as an artist's impression, but it's not good. So that's what I gathered from that conversation from this guy. And the launch pad is there, completely cement into the water already. And then the shoreline thing, they got big rocks continuously. And he said they're digging out some old rocks and putting in new ones. He wasn't certain why they need to change that, but they're doing it. So that's my report on Dockside.
Great, thank you very much. Any correspondence? Okay, thank you all. And so let's move on to the agenda item. I was unable to attend the presentation last night at the Village Hall, and I know it's evolving, but I also know I've seen it twice. So, and I don't know when the recording will actually be posted. It may be up tonight, I don't know, but I will take a look because I understand there was a pretty active Q&A session there, which of course is important to be aware of. Yaslin was there, and so I've asked her just to give us her impression.
I was there too.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then jump in, Sue, if you'd like.
Yes, Lynn, you want to start your impression?
Okay.
Before, just let you know, the video is on the YouTube channel. It was loaded up this morning.
This morning. Okay, great.
Yeah, so it is there.
Great. So I will certainly, and I encourage everyone who couldn't attend to look at that. Yaslin, do you want to just give us your impression of and the things that struck you about it, about the presentation, or what you learned from it?
Yeah, I also want to acknowledge the folks on the call that are from the HH Fjord project, and I'm actually really excited that they're on in case they hear something new from this group that can be factored into sort of planning and communication and next steps, et cetera. So thank you guys for joining. I know you weren't expecting to, but thank you for making the time so last minute. So I thought the presentation was very well done. And I'm impressed with all of the work that's been done over the last couple of years. I felt like the presentation did answer a lot of questions, and MJ and her team were very gracious and answered the questions to the best of their abilities with the data that we have available to us today. I think I am of the mind that the project is a good idea. And I think for the most part, the community supports it with several caveats, right? And it's the same things that we've heard around population control, parking, safety, wildlife, facilities, infrastructure. It's all of those things. So I don't think that in that meeting we heard necessarily anything new, right, that hasn't been raised previously. We also heard from several folks, including Richard Shea, that this is inevitable. And so it's almost like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like it's happening. And with that, my perspective is we need to really be focused on, instead of taking sides, is to think about contingencies and how we as a planning board can support the village board trustees in helping to formulate ideas, suggestions, recommendations, review of data. Like there's a lot of work here, and I'm sure that there is additional support and things that we can do to help influence the master plan as it starts to go into site planning and more detailed execution. there are a couple of recommendations that I have that I would like to talk about since we do have MJ on the line. But before I do that, Sue, is there any impressions that you had as well that you want to talk about?
I think in general, the presentation, as Yasmin said, was very well done. They added some of the new things that was not in existence in a few years ago while we went to the meeting. Well, that was good. And then, but I think they are more concentrated on what the trail would look like, feel like, and it was for the enjoyment of general public and so on, which was great. But I felt the weak point was that they did not really address in detail or with more thoughts about Dockside Park. I felt that was not addressed enough. I agree that it is a good project. I'm really, I would love to ride or hike or whatever from here to Beacon or to the mountains and so on. It's great. It's right in our backyard. The only thing I think as even just a citizen here, we should do something, whatever we can, to be constructive, to be whatever word we can find, but basically is to do a good job before a bad job is done and then undo the bad job. That I think that is important for us if we are involved. Otherwise, I like the project. The idea is great, but the parking and so on, we don't know. I really cannot imagine that place. But if people are coming, great. And then they were talking about incentive packages with Metro North and so on. I think it's all great, but it's not the detailed phase yet. They still go through SECRA evaluation and a lot of other things. So now if we put specifics in, it's not gonna to be heard or help at the moment. That's what I felt.
Okay, but thank you.
The only thing I would say to counter that a little bit is there's just not enough data. Honestly, there's not enough data for your trail folks to have the solutions I think that everybody was looking for.
Yeah.
There just isn't.
I agree.
We talked they talked yesterday about a number of studies and a number of research that is pending to be done, right? So I think that needs to happen before solutioning. And I think there's also a lot of work that Cold Spring Village Board, current and past, has also done that I think can be combined with the studies to be conducted, that when taken together, that data can probably, collectively, we can come up with some really great solutions, which is leads me to some suggestions. But Jack, do you want to interrupt?
Well, no, not interrupt. I just want sort of a clarification. First, I want to ask MJ if she's comfortable answering questions, because this is not a presentation or a formal public hearing. I have no problem, but I just want to ask her if she's comfortable playing that role. And we will, by the way, ask for a formal presentation, and we may exercise our right to hold a public hearing as well on this in the future. But and I'm interested in both of your reactions, because I don't think, at least from my perspective, that the question has ever been one so far that the project is a bad idea, or that the vision is somehow not a good vision. I do think that you Yaslin raised the key issue, or one of the key issues, which is the insufficiency of real data upon which to make decisions that may or may not, but could have a considerable impact, not just on the village, but on the processes, the future processes of planning and development and budgeting in the village. So it is exactly at that, on that point of data collection, of data availability, and on the, on the scheduling of when that data will be available. So maybe, and then I would like to share with you, I attended a meeting this morning with the mayor and with the village attorney and with TWAPE's, trustee. And because we discussed much of this, and I'd like to report to you all about what I learned at this meeting. But MJ, if you will you chime in and let us know whether you want to take specific questions out or whether you just want to listen?
Well, actually, I was just kind of in listening mode tonight because you hadn't invited me to present or to participate in this. And the mayor just mentioned that we were on the agenda for tonight. So I thought that it would be good to come and kind of take in what the planning board is, your thoughts, your impressions, and the things that you want and crave in terms of information.
Okay, that I happen to agree with that. And this, as I say, this is on the agenda as a discussion item so that we could inform one another of our developing opinions, not opinions, concerns, whatever, points of view since the last time we discussed this and our letter was sent to the trustees. So, but just to let you know and to let the other members know that part of what we need to discuss, I think, tonight are the potentials of asking for an individual presentation, which would then be announced as such. And I think we could leave for a later date the idea of a public hearing. So if you're comfortable, MJ, observing and certainly, normally, and I don't know what the procedures are here, but I mean the formal ones. Normally there's a separation in the agenda of board member comments and public comments. I would be, it's fine with me if we waive that. So if there's a point in which you want to come in and offer something, please feel free to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll carry on that way. Let me see, Matt and then Lara.
So I'm having trouble putting things together here. So the statement is made that it's a done deal. And I assume that one of the solutions is places dockside as a terminus, but yet the statement is also made that there's not enough data to really determine solutions, but the solutions are already identified in a done deal. So I don't know how to marry those two things. But one thing I would like to understand is the planning board sent a letter to the village board. The village board did not read it into the public record. The mayor at that time said that she was going to read it into the public record at this presentation last night. Yaslin or Sue, I understand it was not read into the public record.
That's correct, it was not.
No,
So
not-
where is this letter and why has it not been read into the public record? Anybody?
Well, it's a valid question.
Yeah, I know that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, of course it is. I mean,
Yeah, if you'll be a little patient, then when I get to the point of going over some of the salient points of the meeting this morning, I will try to address it to the
Okay.
extent.
Was there any color as to why Richard Chase says this is a done deal and it's happening? And that may not be a fair question. It may have just been a statement. Is it because of state
He
support?
wasn't
Is
the
it because
only
of
one.
money? Is it?
No, I just think he was just saying it because that's just his opinion and he's been involved in it since the beginning. And he
Okay.
wasn't the only one that made statements like that.
Okay.
I
And-
mean,
and-
so when you go back and listen to the recording, you'll see, there was one extreme person that, had extreme things to say, and then there was other extreme things on the other end, right? So there was lots of things that was being said.
That's how a democracy works.
Yeah, exactly. So the sense I got is that this will be moving forward in some capacity. There have been some improvements that were planned that are already done, which I was excited to hear about. And I think at this point, it's a matter of collecting data and taking another look at the master plan and to see what else needs to be corrected based on feedback that MJ and team continue to get, not just from us, but from other parts of the community, right? So, and again,
and-
I don't think, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think everyone sees the benefit, right? Everyone sees the benefit. Jack, I said everyone sees the benefit. Yeah,
Right.
everyone sees the benefit. I think it's the finer points and a lot of the open questions that folks have around some of the things that I stated in the beginning that will put more folks, I think, at ease about its planning and its development. And those are questions that just need to get answered. And I don't see how they can be answered without completing some of the studies and the data gathering that still needs to get done.
So
And
if-
is it a fair point? Is it a fair point to say that the solutions all include Dockside as a terminus, as the southern
No.
terminus?
No, that's just one part of it. There were many things that
That
was
could
discussed.
that could change? Is that what I'm hearing?
My personal feeling, I don't think it's gonna change, but
Right.
there might be ways to dilute the crowd. There might be ways to help the village and so on, but I don't
Right.
think it's gonna say, no, it's not gonna
Correct.
be the lead
Correct.
into the thing. That's
Yeah.
my feeling. I don't know. Yeah, but
I have the same feeling, like what this is about is trying to address the concerns, not eliminate it as, part of the plan, right? So this is about addressing, what's the root of the concern with Dockside being a terminus.
right. But however, my feeling from last night was that that issue was not addressed enough. There weren't any questions that's directed at the usage of Dockside.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Yeah.
Lara's had her hand up, so let's give
Yeah.
her the floor.
Matt, unless you have a further.
I'm sorry, just
I
one
don't mean
further
to interrupt.
clarification,
Go ahead.
just
Yeah,
one
and then
further.
I'll jump up.
So
Thanks.
MJ, did I hear you correctly that Kathleen reached out to you personally and asked you to attend?
During the meeting.
Oh, no, during the meeting, she, at the end of the meeting, she said that, so you've got a meeting tomorrow night. And I said, I do. She said, "Well, the planning board, you're on the planning board agenda. And I said, well, we haven't been invited to the plan, to be on,
Okay.
to present before the planning board. But
Yeah.
now that
Yeah.
you mention it, I will attend. So,
Okay.
and
That was a
I will attend every time that you have your trail on the
Okay.
Very good.
agenda so that
Very
we
good,
can-
thanks.
We can listen.
All right, Lara?
Yeah, I'm sorry I was not able to attend yesterday's meeting, but I just wanted to sort of give some quick feedback as to what I'm sort of hearing in the community, and then also in my capacity on the planning board, as well as a design professional, what I'm sort of I guess, yeah, my approach to such a large scale project such as this. And, I think one of the concerns that was articulated early on or in our letter was this idea of, and one that I sort of share was this idea that there's a you know, a shift in what the goals of the design or the plan might be, from one that initially that had a lot of community support, where the goals were about mitigation of you know, the strains on infrastructure from a lot of visitors, and really trying to help the area and that zone adapt to that shifting demographic or shifting pressure on the area, which I think there was a lot of buy-in for that. And then when I think, you know, there's been kind of a time warp that we've all been part of through this pandemic. And then when things got represented to our community, and it felt like it became a more concrete plan with concrete funding and concrete stakeholders, or other concrete stakeholders at the state level and so forth. It felt like maybe it had expanded. And I think that's a valid concern. At the same time, I recognize that it might be something of a sort of long vision or broader vision that can be adaptable. And I guess just to Yaslin's point, as the team, the Fjord Trail team, is adapting the design and listening to the community, as long as the process is one of participatory design with the community and the stakeholders in the community, I think there can be the initial potential benefit of mitigating the strain on our infrastructure can be achieved. And I understand that, you know, what we talked about was this idea of like, when the project shifts from being one of mitigating an existing pressure to one that attracts more foot traffic and more pressure, can it, you know, is the project going to catch up with its own shifting goals, you know? And I think as long as we continue to express that and make sure that that is addressed, I think it can be a positive for the community. So I just wanted to put that out there and just say that, you know, I think there are avenues for this kind of participatory design, and as long as it's a little bit more open. I don't know how it's all going to unfold, but I just wanted to put out that it has the potential to unfold in a way that can benefit the community. Of course, you know, I think maintenance is always something that can get forgotten after a project has been developed. Who's in charge of maintenance? How is the maintenance happening? And, you know, as we expressed in previous meetings and, you know, or just previous informal discussions and formal discussions, I think that some of the main concerns are ones of just infrastructure strain on our community, and not, you know, and that has, you know, specifically that can be anywhere from trash management to bathrooms. I hate to make it about bathrooms, to parking. You know, we need those things. They're very they're less exciting than sometimes the features in a master planner design project, but they're really, really important to ensure the success of the project. So sorry, it was longer than I intended it to be.
It's
So
helpful.
the one thing I did want to say though, Lara, that hopefully can provide you with some comfort, is MJ and team did review and update goals for 2020 master plan. And one of those goals was to help manage visitation to Cold Spring and 90 corridor, et cetera, et cetera. So that was added as one of the goals that was not previously there. So I believe that they heard the feedback loud and clear, and every single thing that you just mentioned was also mentioned
Sorry.
on the call.
Yeah.
And no, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
That means that you're in tune with what the community is thinking. So that's awesome.
Okay.
And so I think they have, you know, the team has the feedback.
Mhm.
And like I said, right now, you know, the big question for me is, when are the studies going to happen? What are those
Right.
dates? how is the output of the information we're getting going to get fed into the master plan? Does that change the, you know, the construction timing? Because we also saw timing for approximate starts and builds. How does the data that we're going to get and the studies that we're going to do going to impact that timing? You know, what are going to be those feedback points so that we can see, oh, we did this parking study, and so therefore it changes this plan. And so here, community, this is what we're gonna do. Like, I would like to see a timeline for how the data feeds into decision-making. That's the big thing for me, because I think that'll quiet some of a lot of the questions that we have, because literally we're circling around like 5 major points that can be answered and can be create solutions for.
Well, I agree with you, yes, and timing. In other words, when does this stop being a proposal and become a project? In the real sense, you know, when does value engineering come in? For instance, just one example, I do, because I find that the concept, which I've heard in more than one place and time than Richard Shea, is I find this concept that it's a done deal totally inconsistent with every principle of public review. I'm not saying that at the end of the day, the public review couldn't solve some problems, but I don't accept it myself as the chair of the board as a done deal. And I find it is a pernicious idea to work from the concept that you have no choice other than to accept what you're seeing or what you're presented. Okay, so
Excellent point. I mean, it changes your thinking.
yes, and so for me, again, and what has been the concerns that I have been raising from a public policy perspective, not on the project as a formed project, because we haven't seen it as a formed project, but on the principles that are at work in the development of the choices that are being made. So let me go on to give you a little of this meeting that I attended this morning, which the mayor kindly invited me to with the village attorney. And some of the discussion was also basically about timing. You know, what is the schedule of the environmental impact statement? There is apparently a general environmental impact statement at some stage of development, but we don't know where it is. If it is at a stage of development, then certain steps would have had to have been completed before now. And so what are those steps, if any, that have been completed? Or is the presumption incorrect? And that extends to also who will be a named affected party in the environmental impact statement. There's a whole lot of definition that guarantees the structure of meaningful discussion of alternatives. And so, and the mayor agreed that this was an important thing for everyone to understand. And as did the attorney, that there needs to be more specificity before anyone can really know what it is that's being discussed. So there will be a letter being sent I believe, to the State Parks Department, who is, I believe, the lead agency in this, asking for some specificity of what we can expect in the environmental impact statement process, and how long do we expect that process is going to take, and how that dovetails with what is going on as an independent piece of this at Breakneck. So I think it's a very important bit of information. I know the project thinks it's an important bit of information to get out. But it seems to me that before reasoned decisions can be made on specifics such as the management of, the transportation links between Cold Spring and Breakneck, there needs to be a concrete process, and you mentioned it, Yasmin, of where are those points of interaction that are guaranteed, and are they in time for the project to respond to them in a serious way? So the village is going to send a letter out, and I think it behooves us to wait until they receive an answer back on that, so that we know for our own processes the framework in which this public review process is going to go forward.
Can I add something as far as the timing is concerned?
Yeah.
We collecting data and all this it's absolutely necessary and it must be done. However, from last night's meeting, that I understood the schedule, it's 2025 when the trail from Cold Spring to Beacon should be finished or something like that. So if you look at this time we have, you say, oh, 3 years is long, but actually 3 years is very short. All the data that go back and forth, how long does it take for us to send a letter to the village, for the village to send to whoever? That is already 2 weeks or whatever. So for all these and the secret evaluation, all that, it's going to take a long time. And also there will be hearings and so on and so forth. So I think the timing or from which point to which point will take how long, that is important. Otherwise 3 years is going to be gone really, really fast. And then when you say, oh, we better finish something, and then we finish something where we rush something or not finish something, nobody's going to be happy. That's from last night's meeting, the presentation is great, but again, it's the details put together. What are we going to do? So a cucumber is a cucumber. Once it's pickled, you cannot change it.
Well, I'll stick that on a pillow for me. MJ's got her hand up, so
I just wanted to clarify that there's some inaccuracy in those dates that were presented.
yes,
Actually, the completion of the Breakneck Connector Bridge and Duchess Manor Visitor Center and the segment of trail between those two is projected to be completed in 2025. Shoreline Trail would not even be considered for build until 2024 or beginning build, and would not be completed until 2027.
okay, so that's the just so that sort of.
That's projected.
Yeah.
None of this is in stone, obviously. We have not received environmental review. There are many steps that have to take place before any of this actually happens. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that this is.
And And those dates have to do with the completion of the, what's being called the breakneck, sort of piece of this
Breakneck connector, yes.
connector. And then the other piece would be the, from Little Stony Point to Dockside.
I honestly, I don't even think that they've gotten that far in terms of construction staging in the Shoreline Trail, whether it would begin with Breakneck to Little Stony Point, or whether it would begin Little Stony Point to Dockside. I don't think any of those decisions have been firmly made. And they really can't be until we get farther down the line.
Okay, so again, not asking for you to give an answer that you may not, you can't if you're not in possession of it. You can see the conundrum here of trying to get a handle on when certain things will be undertaken and when the review process will, be initiated and completed, and when there would be when the project is far enough along for actually there to be a discussion of alternatives. In other words, the questions that you're saying legitimately, the answers that you're saying legitimately, which the project is not far along enough to give us or give anyone. When it's those answers that will form the basis of the subject of the environmental impact statement, which, and it must, because to have a discussion of alternatives and a discussion of potential negative impact, you need to have something there to discuss. I mean, has there even been a negative deck or a positive deck yet?
Right now, we're undergoing environmental review for the project. So it's happening now. And I'm sure that Parks can tell you what has been completed and what is left to do.
They will?
I would think that they would. I can't speak for Parks. So, but I would strongly encourage anyone who did not attend last night's presentation to watch that presentation. It's a great overview of the history and brings you straight up to date where we are at the moment. I would also strongly encourage you to go on to hhft.org and view the 2 webinar presentations that were given in 2020 when the draft master plan was originally was drafted, and there were 2 presentations talking about the vision. And I think a lot of your questions are answered in those webinars and in last night's presentation. And as I said, we are happy to give a presentation to this board when asked.
Right. Well, we appreciate that, and you shall be asked. And I certainly am going to watch the presentation that was given last night, and I will certainly listen to the webinars. I mean, watch the webinars, because the more we understand about it, the better it is. The better it is for us to carry out our responsibilities. So I think we're agreed upon about doing that. But vision is one thing, and a project is another thing. And I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that in order for the public to be given the chance to participate, and as you know, the public's participation in the EIS process the participation isn't discretionary, but how the agency responds to their suggestions is discretionary. So whatever those concerns are, whatever suggestions are, may not end up at the end of the day in the final plan, and that's the way the system works. But the solidity of the opportunity, I think, is also part of the way the system is supposed to work. So I will certainly look at that information, but there remains this missing piece of what is it that we're actually looking at, and or when will we actually get a chance to see it? As to this perception of this being a done deal, I think it is so damaging. And I'm not saying that the project is the source of it. Certainly not, am I saying that? But the perception of it is exceedingly damaging to the whole quality of the relationship between 2,000 people who are living in Cold Spring and the people, agencies, whatever, who are controlling this project, and rightly so. So I think personally, not personally, I think as chair of this board, that perception, if it is true, then it needs to be stated as so. And if it is not true, then we need to know at what point, as Yaslin said, is access granted in a real way to the decisions that are being made. And it's not an easy situation, but anyway. Does anyone else like to, have a comment to add? I think you've heard that, and we will, MJ, I believe, although we will need to vote on it, of course, but an invitation to you, I'm sure will be forthcoming to make a presentation, a formal presentation to the board. And I don't know, we will need to discuss amongst ourselves the best time for that, in terms of the rest of the process. But it will be forthcoming, I can pretty much assure you. Yaslin?
Yeah, Jack, the one thing I would add is that we should discuss as a group what we want the content of the presentation to be, or the, the agenda. Because I don't think we want a rehash of what the material that we're getting ready to review.
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I think as a planning board, another thing we should discuss is what we want the agenda to be for the meeting when we invite MJ and her team back, and what we would like to see in terms of the presentation material, because I'm assuming we don't want a rehash of what we're getting ready, what some of us are going to review from yesterday, and then what's already on the website.
That's fair enough. And that can, I think that can be a joint conversation, so that the use of everyone's time is maximized, So, all right. Sorry, I gotta call the agenda. Okay. I've covered most of this. The one item down there which says other planning boards, I purely by accident at a dinner party. I met a member of one of the other planning boards affected by this project, and I asked whether they had taken up in any sort of formal way a discussion of this project. And their response was that they themselves had not, but the governing body, the elected body, had some time ago. And the question came up in the conversation whether, and not tomorrow, obviously, but whether at some point in the future it would be helpful for us to meet with the other planning boards for an exchange of ideas. I don't know whether there are prohibitions against that or not. I'm not saying that I feel strongly about it, but the question was posed, so I'm just informing you all to think about it. It's certainly an option, whether I don't know what the utility of it might be or might not be, but it's something just to think about. Okay. All right.
Jack?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I still don't have any clarification. The planning board unanimously said they wanted to write a letter to the village board. That letter was sent, I believe was dated April 5th. The mayor said she would hold it, didn't read it into public record, then would read it into the presentation last night and did not. Do you have any idea as to why that has happened, or any involvement as to why that's happened?
I will certainly contact the mayor and get a clarification. My understanding was that she referred to the letter. And I don't, well, Yaslin, you were there, Sue, you were there. My understanding from this morning's meeting was that she referred to the letter at the same time, and again, correct me, at the same time she raised the value of the board inviting Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail to make a full presentation. Beyond that, I can't answer that, but I can certainly ask her.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's highly unusual to get any letter that isn't read into the public record, and to make it through 2 meetings and still not be read into the record is highly unusual.
It's only one meeting, Matt, because
No, it was at the village board meeting, right, where she said she would hold the letter, she would not read it into the public record until the Fjord Trail presentation meeting, at which point she would read it into the record. I'm understanding that she did not, and the 2 folks that were there said she did not.
All right, well, let me go back and I
Okay.
will follow up and check the record. I don't want to,
And
Yeah.
with respect to the meeting with John, you talk about a public hearing. I'm not familiar with what that is in the absence of an application.
Well,
What is a public hearing in the absence of an application to a planning board? I'm not aware that anything like that even exists.
well, it's a matter of, I'm not saying that it does. It's just something to explore, but what's being explored is if we were named as a affected party,
As an involved agency?
as an affected party under the EIS, whether or not that would permit in our commenting process for us to hold a public hearing.
Oh, okay. So it isn't understood from John. John didn't present that we could do something like that.
Oh,
Okay.
no, absolutely not. It was simply came up as, something that we should know about. That's all in determining our future options. So no, John did not suggest anything.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then hold on. Oh, God. Hold on. All right. Well, moving on. And thank you, MJ, and thank you, other members of the public, whether associated with the Fjord Trail or not, for joining us. Is there any new business? All right, barring none, would any of the public, regardless of whether you're associated with Fjord Trail or not, care to make a comment or share something with the board members? Okay,
Yes, I would. Yes.
yeah,
Hi, I'm Karen Maschke. I live at Forge Gate Condominium. I'm the president of the Board of Managers. I just
Uh-huh.
wanted to make a comment that I heard Ms. Daniels say that she had a couple of suggestions, but I'm not sure we actually heard them. At the end of your presentation, you said I thought you said 5, but you said some.
Yeah, I said there were 5 points that we were circling around. And yeah, I did have some suggestions, one of which I already mentioned around the timeline. I don't know if we want to continue talking about this here, but I'm sure we're going to have lots of opportunity to continue this discussion. But Karen, I think you probably heard some of them already, voiced by myself and Jack and others.
Thank you.
No problem.
thanks, Yasmin.
Sure.
All right, and all right, any board business? I think not, and barring that.
I just have one question. So we got an email about an application that's going to be submitted from 45 Fair Street. That hasn't happened, right? Like that, it was just the blank forms going out to Jimmy, is that right? Okay.
That's right. It was sent out to us by Jeff, informing us that the applications had been sent out.
Got it. Thank you.
And
Want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
no, you didn't miss anything. So when that application is submitted,
Okay,
then we'll take it up. Okay.
thank you.
But you did see the description of
What they want to do, yeah.
Okay. All righty. Well then, if I could have a
Motion to adjourn. So
Back.
moved.
thank you, and if I could have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Have a good night.
You
Thanks,
too.
everybody.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care,
Thank
everybody.
you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening.
Have a good night.
Good night.